Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're here today with our Total Wellness Tuesday episode, where we are going to be going over all of the sneaky symptoms of low blood sugar. So a lot of people think that high blood sugar is something that needs to be watched out for most people. And while I don't disagree that many people are getting spikes in high blood sugar during the day, oftentimes it can be paired with low blood sugar. So I'm going to explain how that happens today. I want to make sure that people know that both are things to watch out for, both are conditions to be aware of, and also then what you can do about it. So we're going to go over the specific symptoms. I have about 15 or so that you may be feeling or experiencing, or of course, someone that you know, right? A loved one, a family member. Remember, the information is not always just for you, but it's also information that you can learn that you can then share with someone else. I don't see anything that's more important and more timely, especially right now, than teaching people about their health or simply making them more aware. Maybe you're not an integrative health practitioner or a health coach or a naturopathic doctor or a functional medicine doctor, whatever it might be, but you certainly are someone that listens to podcasts, that takes health serious. And that doesn't mean that you can't just open the conversation with someone that you care about when they come in with one of these specific symptoms. Just say, hey, I don't know if this is what it is, but it certainly sounds like you might be dealing with some hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. You know, and as you listen to these symptoms, you might begin to pick out that one person in your life that you know that certainly experiences these specific things. And I'll let you know just before we get started today as we go through this, I am that person. I am the person, if they trend in one direction or the other, I trend towards hypoglycemia. Now, yes, I've done glucose tolerance tests when I was younger, when I wasn't well, and failed them. A glucose tolerance test is essentially a 3-hour blood work. You get it done once every hour, looking at your blood sugar and seeing if it falls below. There are different limits, 126 to essentially 140. And back when I did it many years ago, 20 years ago, the range was at about 136 or 133 or whatever it was. And I was a 136 and I fell outside of that range. Well, that means that I have some type of back then, again, if you were above a 126, which typically is today, you know, you fall into the type 2 diabetes category. Today's show is not about diabetes. It's not a treatment protocol. This is not a cure. This is looking at specific symptoms and then what we can do for people that begin to experience these symptoms through nutrition and also being aware of it with exercise as well. So I want to take you through those. You know, again, my body is healed today. I always share this with people, but I want them to know that there is hope for anybody. If I can overcome all the issues that I went through, you can overcome them too. I really believe that. That is my belief. And it's because I've seen it time and again. Every time I think, wow, this person's in a bad spot, and they overcome it. And I say, well, you know what? If they can do it, anybody can do it. And that's how I look at it. Again, most people, they're not very different than you or I. What they do, the people who are successful, they listened to yesterday's podcast. That's the truth. They took the message from that, not because they listened to the podcast, but because they lived it. And I would love you to listen to yesterday's show. Let's get you some of these show numbers right now as we start to get started. Today is episode 1614, StephenCabral.com/1614. Yesterday's episode was 1613, which is talking about why you need to double your rate of failure. And I know it sounds like a crazy concept, but if you listen to that show, you will be able to figure that out. Okay, all previous podcasts, all previous 1,613 podcasts before today are available at StephenCabral.com/podcasts, and they're all free. I think my team's doing a great job at archiving them. There's a search box where you can search all your different questions and keywords. So absolutely do check that out. So let's get into today's show. And what I want to do, let me see if I can count this right now. I just have a bulleted list right now in front of me. We have an undescribed number because my number is not working. I'll count them up. Well, let me count them now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We have 14. Maybe I'll add another in there. But we've got about a dozen strong symptoms of what people feel as they're beginning to go low blood sugar. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're hypoglycemic, but you can test that. Now, very simple. I'll link it up again today, but one of those very inexpensive things that you can use to learn more about your own body is a glucometer. Very simple, very inexpensive. You can purchase them almost anywhere at your local Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, etc. And another thing that goes along with this, although not so much today, but I will say that many of these symptoms sound eerily similar to low blood pressure. So you can also, we'll try to link that up for today as well. I'm going to have my team do that. My team, if you're listening, I'm going to put in my notes right now, but here's what we want to do. Actually, today is a Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, and it is episode 1615. I apologize. I was looking at the wrong guide. It's StephenCabral.com/1615, and that Monday podcast was 1613. Okay, so I'm going to link them up here today. The glucometer, and I'm going to link up that BP monitor to take your blood pressure right at home. Super simple, great metrics for yourself. Okay, let's dive right in. The first symptom that you'll feel is hunger. Now, not always, but I want to get the simplest and most obvious one out of the way. Hunger, right? When you get low blood sugar, your body's saying we need fuel, predominantly glucose. So why would we want glucose? Well, our blood sugar is falling. And what does that even mean? Well, it means that typically if you're dealing with low blood sugar, that your actual numbers have begun to fall to below 70 milligrams per deciliter. And I can just tell you from personal experience, once I get down to about 72, 73, I begin to experience these symptoms. So I just want you to keep in mind, a typical recommendation for a healthy blood sugar level is between 70 and 95. Now, on your medical labs, they'll give you between 70 and 100. We typically recommend from a functional medicine standpoint, don't let it get above 95. Upon waking, it should ideally be at 90 or below, 70 to 90. And then there's always where you're going to feel best. I feel best, and I don't have to worry. My morning glucose is typically on the lower side. I try to stay between 75 and 85, 75 and maybe 90. You'll find the best range for you based on your body. If you're trying to lose weight, I think most people want to keep that on the lower side. Now, within a healthy range, but on the lower side. So what your body's trying to do, and I'll get back to the symptoms in 1 second, but let's take this maybe a step back. You start to get hypoglycemia or lower blood sugar because the actual sugar, the actual glucose in your blood is dropping. So you get a signal to your brain, and your body can't tell your brain to go have some carbs or do specific things, which we'll talk about in a moment. It can't tell you to do that. But what it can do is actually give you signs and symptoms. And your job then is to bring it back up to a healthy level, not a dramatic level. One of the craziest things that I see in conventional medicine, I love registered dietitians. Don't get me wrong. I have 2 registered dietitians on my team, and they're very intelligent. They're brilliant. But here's the issue. If they went by their formal education alone, they would be told, hey, tell your client to carry around a granola bar. Have them carry around some saltines, some fruit juice, some pretzels, some cookies, if they start to get lower blood sugar. I mean, all that's going to do is cause a roller coaster with your blood sugar, oftentimes causing reactive hypoglycemia. So here's what happens. You start to get lower blood sugar, and then you say, well, I'm feeling these symptoms. Oh, I'm going to go have some pretzels. But you didn't eat just a few pretzels to bring the blood sugar up. You eat a bag or half a bag. And then all of a sudden now your blood sugar spikes. It's at 200 milligrams per deciliter. Way too high. So what happens next? Well, now your body starts to release more insulin. And what is insulin's job to do? Well, it needs to pull the glucose into the cells. It's going to store it as in the liver, going to store it in the muscles. We won't go over that today. I've done a specific webinar on this before. And then what's going to happen is then it will store it as body fat as well, as needed. Okay, so that's where the extra glucose is going to go. Store it as glycogen, store it as body fat, or use it, as needed. So here's the issue, though. Your body starts to become desensitized to this insulin over time. Too much processed food, too many pretzels, too much processed flour. Now what happens is you keep getting these spikes in blood sugar. Body sends out insulin. It's not enough. Cells aren't listening. The body sends out more insulin. Now all of a sudden, body forces it to get basically stored away in these cells, jam it in the cells. Now what happens? You have extra insulin in the blood. Blood sugar goes too low. Now you're in what's a state of called reactive hypoglycemia. So you go high blood sugar, low blood sugar, high blood sugar, low blood sugar. And that's where I used to be every single day. Do you think that's a recipe for disaster? Yes. Did any doctor ever tell me how to fix that? No. Not for about 2 years of dealing with my specific conditions. How bad is it, do we know now, for blood sugar dysregulation on your adrenals, or what's called the HPA axis? Because the HPA axis is what's going to signal glycolysis or gluconeogenesis, which is basically just breaking down stored glycogen to be able to use as fuel, or to be able to break it down from amino acids or use amino acids and proteins. So you have to understand is that it's really difficult to stabilize energy and mood and your clear thinking without stabilizing blood sugar. I mean, it's crucial. I was not able to fully get well until I stabilized blood sugar because I was all over the map. My adrenals were extremely stressed. When I say adrenals, if you want the technical term, it's hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, but we don't need to talk like medical dictionaries. The adrenals needed help. And that's another thing for people dealing with thyroid-based issues. If your adrenals are dysregulated, you can almost guarantee in time your thyroid is going to become dysregulated. That's why fixing the thyroid, rebalancing the thyroid, if you're not looking at your adrenals and you're not looking at your blood sugar, it's going to be difficult to fix that. And that's why, again, I love medical doctors. I love that they're able to help in acute-based circumstances, but you have these brilliant endocrinologists that don't even talk about blood sugar regulation when you have thyroid issues. Or when you have adrenal issues, sure, they'll put you on Cortef, hydrocortisone. They'll put you on Florinef for maybe some POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or low blood pressure, another way of saying it too. But what are they doing? Not talking about how you can stabilize blood sugar. So remember, the reason why I went off on a little bit of a tangent there is that this is just one example. There is an answer. There is an answer for you. You simply have to find the information. And people have this information. It is not locked away. It's not always easy to find. It was nearly impossible in the late 90s when I was dealing with this. Nearly impossible. One, I didn't have a computer. Two, it was just the beginning of dial-up internet. And so what did I do? Read books. You had yellow pages to try to look up a doctor. Well, there wasn't an alternative health section. I put that in air quotes. So how was I supposed to find anybody to help me get well? Frustrating to say the least. All you had to do was talk to people and hopefully get a referral, which is why I say at the end of my show every single day, if this information could serve anybody else, please share it with them. Don't assume that they already know how to find the answer, because there's a lot of articles online, but they don't go very deep. 500 words, 2,000 words, it's not going to solve your issues. You need to go deeper. You need to peel back the onion. So my goal with these podcasts, and today's turned into a little bit of a rant, is just to let you know, whatever dis-ease your body's dealing with right now, there's an underlying root cause. There is an answer. So I just want you to take that to heart. It is my mission. It is my goal. There wasn't a voice for me when I was younger. All of those people who knew how to help me, they didn't have a voice. What could they do? They were helping people get well. Originally, I found a place, no exaggeration, 1.5 miles from my house. It took me 2 years to find a place 1.5 miles from my house. I had no idea that they could help me. Eventually, I did. Word of mouth. That's how I learned about it. So again, just share this information. That's what it's all about. This is open source. It's why we open source our labs. It's why we open source our protocols. Use them. I mean, they work, or at least use them as a starting point, meaning like you can work with anybody in the world that you want to. Just use some of this advice. It's helped other people, and that's all that I want. Okay, let's get on to our topic for today. Somewhere around 15 sneaky symptoms of low blood sugar. Hunger is the first one. The second one is feeling shaky. If you feel a little uneasy, if you feel a little shaky, that could be a symptom of low blood sugar. Most people are going to feel these symptoms of low blood sugar about 2 to 3 hours after a meal, oftentimes mid-afternoon after a big lunch. You get that drop, the spike in blood sugar and the subsequent drop 3 hours later. Or they feel it after a workout when they've used up those glucose stores, or first thing in the morning. It can happen any time of the day. You can even wake up with it. One of the reasons why people have difficulty sleeping, dysregulated blood sugar, drops in blood sugar overnight. Big issue with people with adrenal-based issues, okay? That's why there is no one diet for everyone. All right, so feeling shaky, the next one, a fast or irregular heartbeat, okay? Again, we're not diagnosing anything. That's not what this show is all about, but a fast or irregular heart rate. Being nervous, right? Nervousness, feeling a little anxiety. If all of a sudden, mid-afternoon, you start to get a little bit anxious, look to see if it might be your blood sugar. Do you just need something to eat to stabilize that blood sugar? Important to look at that. All right, irritability kind of goes along with it, right? Some people get nervous, some people get anxious. Me, I get a little hangry. I don't typically get nervous or anxious too much. It's just not wired inside of my genetics. I have more of that pitta-based mindset. I get irritable and I get impatient. As my wife says, I get a little hangry. My youngest daughter, she genetically inherited the hangry. My oldest daughter, nope. My wife, no. They can go a long period of time without eating, and they're okay. My youngest daughter and I, from when I was a child and when she's a child, her levels look good, my levels look good. But what do? Well, we trend in one direction. We trend more towards hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, and we trend more towards irritability and a little bit towards impatient. And I'll admit it, that's the way that it is. Now, I'll tell you why it doesn't come up as often now, and it's simply because I'm aware and I use my nutrition now to better regulate that. I will share that with you in just a moment. All right. Some people get almost like a state of confusion where they get that foggy or cloudy thinking, difficulty recalling. Could be possible that it's a low blood sugar-based symptom. Dizziness and lightheadedness. This is another one that I get. The hangry, which is the hungry and angry combined, for those people who've never heard hangry before, and feeling lightheaded or dizzy. Again, we're not diagnosing any specific type of vertigo, etc. What I am saying is, if you're typically good, and then all of a sudden you start to get dizzy 3 hours after a meal or so, or after a workout, or first thing in the morning, it is possible, especially if you use that glucometer, that it's a low blood sugar-based symptom. Now again, when I started to feel those symptoms, I just did a little finger prick, took my glucose level, and I'm like, 72. There we go. My body will typically keep me in the low 70s to high 60s, but what does it do? It compensates. How does it compensate? Through that HPA axis, through using the adrenals. And it's too much stress on my nervous system. Keep your blood sugar stabilized. I'm a huge proponent of fasting, so I'm not saying that you can't fast, right? I have many shows on fasting. I've also shared why skipping breakfast is not always the best thing to do for everybody, especially when you have a busy day, especially when you're moving that body. You can check out those previous podcasts as well. All right, shakiness. I mentioned shakiness. I want to talk about this in just a little bit different of a way, though. So there are some people who you can visibly see their hand shake. So the shakiness that I was talking about before is almost like an uneasiness. Your body feels a little shaky. Some people, you can actually see it in their grip. You can see them, their hand holding something literally is unstable. Now, it's not always like that because that can be a sign of other things as well. But their grip, their hand starts to shake. Sometimes it happens with the feet. I see it most often with the hand. So just, again, be in tune for that. Look at that. Observe it in others. Skin tingling is a strange one, okay? But some people, when they're experiencing low blood sugar, will get the tingliness of the skin. It has more to do with the nervous system. However, the nervous system is finely tuned with your glucose levels. The higher or lower your glucose levels go outside of the normal range, the more stress you place on your nervous system. So if you're someone that's already stressed and you're placing more stress on it by dysregulated blood sugar, that is a recipe for disaster. Not too many things more important than stabilizing those glucose levels. I talk about it all the time. Well, I talk about it in our Fatlocity course. You want to lose weight? If you do not stabilize your blood sugar, it's going to be difficult. You want to re-regulate hormones? again, find those underlying imbalances, you have to look at stabilizing blood sugar. Just a couple more. In more severe cases, you'll see sweating. People actually begin to sweat when they start to get into low blood sugar. But now we're talking more getting towards maybe diabetic-based issues. Again, we're not diagnosing here, leading towards more coma-based state. When you start to sweat, that's a potential real issue. That's dysregulation. Pale skin, I see that quite often as well, especially, again, in that ectomorph and sometimes that pitta-based. They'll start to get lighter skin, right? And then the last one is just starting to get sleepy, right? Not the hangry, not the irritable, but you actually start to get tired. A really common sign. I would say the second most common sign besides hunger, right? Besides hunger. But hunger could be for many reasons. You could be anxious and you start to get hungry. You can use hunger for different things. However, sleepiness, again, could be a sign. Yes, high blood sugar, yes, but also low. So that is why knowing your numbers is very important. And when I see any of these signs, I begin to look at what is this person's nutrition like. And what I recommend to you, because a lot of, again, if you're listening to conventional medicine, and I know they mean well, granola bars, keep them with you. Pretzels, keep them with you. Fruit juice, cookies. These are not my recommendations. Why? All they do is help in the short term. Remember, we have to move beyond a Band-Aid based approach. We have to look at the underlying root cause. We need to look at fixing the actual issue rather than slapping a Band-Aid on it. So my recommendation is, yes, you need to bring up your blood sugar if you end up being lower blood sugar. There's no doubt about it. So what could you do? Well, you could simply have a piece of fruit. You could have even a tablespoon of raw honey. Any of these things are not going overboard, but just bringing up your glucose. And again, this is not a diabetic-based treatment protocol. This is just someone whose blood sugar has dropped a little bit. Now, what can we do, though, for the long term? Like, what do we look at? Well, we look at why your blood sugar drops in the first place. Are you waking up low blood sugar? Well, a lot of people do. A lot of people, again, more of the ectomorph, and even sometimes the pitta. Sometimes they just trend more towards glucose utilization. Why? Well, their body is primed more towards the sympathetic nervous system, which uses more glucose. That's just the way that it is. Some people tap into more body fat. And I know it doesn't make sense that the endomorph, even though they're more prone to weight gain, would use more body fat, but it has to do with the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system, which I've discussed on previous shows. So here's what we need to do, though. For those people that are low blood sugar first thing in the morning, do you think that they should fast until lunch? I ask these questions because I really want you to think about this critically and not just listen to just one health guru that has one answer for everyone, because it doesn't work that way. If you're low blood sugar first thing in the morning, you don't want to fast until lunch. And the reason is that you are simply taxing your nervous system, and your body's going to make glucose no matter what. You don't get to live with glucose in the 50s. That's just not how it works. No matter what we want it to be true, it's not how it works. So you either eat something or your body will break down tissue if it's already broken down glycogen in your body. You'll become more catabolic. Sure, you might lose weight, but you're not going to start to lose muscle. Your body's going to become more catabolic. And I mean, really, if you ever came off that diet, you're going to see the weight not just come back, you'll gain more because you've destroyed your metabolism. And I don't want that for people. Okay, so here's what we want to do, though, because I want to give you some takeaways. You can check your symptoms, check in with yourself. You can use a glucometer. You can start to look at those things, all right? But what I need you to do is this. I need you to stabilize, believe it or not, with a little bit more protein at each meal. Protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Am I still an advocate of 12 to 14 hours, maybe a little bit more of intermittent fasting overnight? Yes, I am. Does that mean I believe in skipping breakfast? Not for most people. Certainly not for most women, because I see what it does to their thyroid levels, and it's not good. So what do? Well, I can still get people to fast from 6 at night to 8 in the morning. Believe it or not, the more hours before bed, the better the results. That's what nobody wants to tell you. And I did a previous show on that, so I won't give all that away right now. But if you are stressed in the morning, you need fuel for the body. You can still get 14 hours, 6 o'clock at night to 8 in the morning. You want to fast a little bit longer like we do in the Fat Velocity protocol? Okay. If your body can do it, you can do it. Great. So that's, again, the recommendations on intermittent fasting are based on your body, right? How well you do, how fast you start the morning, etc., how stressed you are. Okay. But here's the thing. Most people need 15 to 20 grams of protein at each meal. When you look at that, that's only 45 grams of protein for the day if you're doing 15 over 3. If you do 20, it's 60 grams for the day. That's about enough for a 150-pound person. If you exercise, especially with weights, and you break down muscle, you should eat a little bit more, most likely. Okay, so we're getting the protein, vegan, fish, however you want to do it, totally up to you. Get the protein in. Now we need some good fat. A couple tablespoons, avocado, olive oil, whatever you're looking to do for your healthy fat. Now the carbs, that's the tricky part, right? What spikes your blood sugar and what doesn't? Well, if you have the protein in there, it's going to start to slow that spike, which is good. And then you're going to want to look at predominantly veggies as your carb of choice in the beginning, especially if you're looking to lose weight. But that doesn't mean you need to live on veggies and a low-carb diet for life. What you begin to do is test your body. How well does it do with a half a cup of fruit at breakfast or in a smoothie, berries, low glycemic? How does it do with a half a sweet potato at lunch? You won't know until you begin to test. And that is the absolute best way to do it. There's no better way. When you talk about bioindividuality, this is bioindividuality. This is how to figure out what's the right amount for you right now. But remember, as your body gets healthier, as you begin to balance your HPA axis, as you begin to balance your HPT axis, which is your hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, your body begins to change. If you are not up and down in blood sugar all day, your pancreas begins to behave better. It releases the normal amount of insulin that you should have. So now what do? Well, that means that in the future, you may actually be able to eat more calories and even more carbs and even more starchy carbs and actually stay regulated. How do we know? Well, in about 12 to 16 weeks, the body begins to change its sensitivities as long as we've been on a plan. So we need to work a plan. Whatever plan works for you, I'm okay with that. I really am good. The point of the Cabral concept is to teach these concepts and then allow people to go out into the world and implement that and then, of course, share them with others. So hopefully today's podcast was helpful. And as always, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anybody else you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stephencabral.com/courses.